Hello everyone, I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to my channel. Since the SJW Brigade is roaring their battle cries for Captain Marvel this week, many of us YouTubers are speaking out against the nonsense of this entire marketing campaign and of what is at stake for the MCU and for the film industry in general, if this film is declared an unequivocal success. This is not about finally having a woman headline a superhero film. As many have pointed out, we've had women-led superhero films as recently as Wonder Woman, as early as Supergirl, and even a woman of color-led superhero film with 2004's Catwoman. This isn't about a woman-led movie. It's not about a first feminist superhero movie. Alita Battle Angel, still in theaters, gives us an incredible example of strong, heroic femininity. And this isn't even about the first woman-led film in the MCU. That should have been a Black Widow film a long time ago. The reason Brie Larson and her supporters ignore those films of the past, the reason Black Widow hasn't received this Captain Marvel level of support, is because those films championed femininity. Captain Marvel is the first film made by and touted as a third-wave feminist superhero film, meaning it denies the very existence of femininity as anything more than a cultural construct. There's absolutely no difference between men and women, the delusional third-wave feminist argues. But Captain Marvel is more than just a third-wave feminist superhero film. It's the first intersectional feminist superhero film. Intersectional feminism defeats itself by arguing for no differences between men and women, while at the same time defining their very identities by sex, gender, ethnicity, and more. I explained the core of the methods of intersectional feminism in a previous Captain Marvel video. It came late in the video, though, so as a refresher, I'll replay it here. Intersectional feminism is the worst type of evil. This is a caste system. They pretend that it's not. They can pretend that, oh no, it's not about taking any chairs away from the table. No, this is a caste system. You are awarded points in intersectional feminism for how much of a victim you are. Always think about your victimhood and how much of a victim you can make yourself, and then you'll gain points. Then you'll gain status in this culture. White, straight, cisgendered men, you are at the bottom rung. You are the untouchables. The best you can do is grovel and apologize at every turn for your epidermis, for your penis, and maybe you'll be allowed to come in and sit at people's feet, possibly, if you white knight enough on the internet. If you're a woman, great, come in here and sit down here. If you're a woman of color, oh, you get a better chair up here. If you're a lesbian woman of color, well, you come right on up here to the top level here. And if you are this minority or that minority or this race or whatever, they have an entire system set up. It's ridiculous. That is what they're going for. It is not equality. Equality, in fact, is anathema from this culture. You see it in all these different little ways. I remember when the big push entered to make feminist theory and feminist critiques a more of a gender deconstruction critique, or let's bring it under the umbrella with queer theory and let's kind of put them all together in sort of this gender. Oh my gosh, feminist theorists kicked up a hissy fit. How dare you? No, the focus should remain on women as the victims. Stop it with this gender deconstruction in general that might dare include men or gay men or whatever. No. Women are the victims. Because that's the currency. That's the currency in this intersectional culture that they want to establish. Your currency in that culture is your victimhood. That's the value. That's the agenda, the ideology that is being pushed by the marketing campaign of Captain Marvel. Now, how is Brie Larson enforcing this segregated caste system of victimhood? Let's revisit her now infamous Wrinkle in Time speech.
That 67% of the top critics reviewing the 100 highest grossing movies in 2017 were white males. Less than a quarter were white women, and less than 10% were unrepresented men. Only 2.5% of those top critics were women of color. So you're probably thinking right now, like, wow, that super doesn't represent the country that I live in, and that's because that's true. This is a huge disconnect from the U.S. population breakdown of 30% white men, 30% white women, 20% men of color, and 20% women of color.
The assumption here is that the breakup of film critics should directly reflect the percentages of our population. Why? Does that need to be done for doctors, teachers, janitors, trash collectors? Where does it end? And unless you think I'm exaggerating what Brie is saying, again, I'll allow her to clarify herself.
So what would it take for the critic pool to match this 30-30-2020 real-world breakdown, and how can we get there? Well, here I am. It's easier than you might think. The bottom line is that if each of the top 100 films in a year added 9 critics that are 3 underrepresented males, 3 white females, 3 underrepresented females, and the average critic pool would match the US population in just 5 years. Super simple.
As far as Brie Larson is concerned, if you are a woman of color, then a white man, a white woman, even a man of color, or a lesbian woman of color is unable to share a relevant assessment of a film with you. Because you are you ready for it? Different. Intersectionality defeats itself by doubling back far beyond the basic differences between men and women to identifying, labeling, and attempting to infuse specific identities and perspectives into people based not only on their sex and gender, but on their ethnicity, sexual orientation, and more.
Because I know that this means that my work will be shown, digested, discussed by a variety of people, not just a singular perspective.
Because cisgendered white men only have one perspective, and it's different from the perspective all non-cisgendered white men have, or the ones all women of color have, and so on.
I do not need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work for him about A Wrinkle in Time. It wasn't made for him.
Now, you might think that intersectional feminists at least mean well, and they really don't hate white men or any majority population, but they often betray themselves in their word choice and the emotion of their delivery.
Am I saying that I hate white dudes? No, I'm not. But other people besides white dudes like Star Wars and would love the opportunity to do a set visit. And I'm also saying I don't hate white dudes.
Let's grow up a bit here, Brie, and use some professional language, shall we? You're giving a formal speech at an award ceremony. You'd never let a man get away with saying white chicks. So saying white men will serve you far better than sneering the phrase white dudes. But this betrays the real intent of her speech, and it's just an example of the greater intersectional feminist agenda. They want to have it both ways. They want to say that a film made by a black woman is not for white men. A film made by white women, Captain Marvel, is not for white men. But then they'll hide behind the defense of, oh, we're not taking anyone's chair away from the table. We just want to add more chairs for better representation. Brie Larson, like the larger intersectional agenda, likes to appear to fight for equality, when in fact they are fighting for a separate but equal mentality, that, as history testifies, is just another method of segregation. As I said in a previous video, the Captain Marvel film is a huge, and maybe even a final testing of the waters by the intersectional feminist agenda. Whether Avengers Endgame really has 2 different endings in waiting or not, the future spirit of the MCU is absolutely at stake. If they succeed in lucratively force-feeding filmgoers Captain Marvel, then you can prepare for far more of this nonsense. And not just from future Captain Marvel movies. Prepare to be preached to by the entire MCU from here on out.
And one of the highlights of my career at Marvel was introducing her at Comic-Con and having her come out on stage and stand there with literally almost everybody else from our universe. And there she was at the forefront. And it was a great foreshadowing, not just for how audiences are going to embrace Brie as this character, but also for how Captain Marvel is about to take the lead and be at the forefront of the entire cinematic universe.
And it won't stop there. Hollywood is watching, and the social justice warriors within it are lying in wait to pounce like Goose the Cat on the opening provided by theatergoers too clueless or too addicted to their fandom to stand up for themselves and for the agenda-free art and entertainment and superhero stories we've come to know and love. Do you like comics that are unafraid to portray women as feminine and men as masculine? Do you enjoy being entertained rather than preached to? If so, then you'll love my own graphic novel, currently on Indiegogo. Tales from the Stacks is an anthology series in the vein of The Twilight Zone or Tales from the Crypt. It contains 3 uncanny tales to thrill and haunt you long after reading. With interior art by Dave T. and variant covers by John Malin, Kyle Ritter, and Kyung Lee, you have lots of options to choose from. You can find the link in the description below or search Indiegogo for Tales from the Stacks, and tell the comic industry you don't have to settle for their social agenda platforming. Thanks. And last but not least, don't forget that your Professor Geek now has a merch store. Check out the current options from t-shirts to magnets to the iconic Professor Geek coffee mug, and let me know if you'd like to see something else. The link is in the description, or you can go to cafepress.com/ProfessorGeek.